Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Fantastic Four issue 47. Yeah. Pretty cool cover there with the Invisible Woman, Sue Storm doing her thing. And I actually really enjoyed this. This actually seems like a pretty good tie-in of what's going on with Judgment Day, while also fusing it together with what is going on in the Baxter Building, pretty much having this do a kind of Die Hard kind of scenario. And at first I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued with that kind of thing. Die Hard in the Baxter Building. Let's kind of see how this goes. And I really liked how this creative team was able to handle the art style and also handle the characters as well. Like, there's no whiplash to me from like going from Dan Slott's run to this. It just works well. So we start off and we see that it gives us pretty much the lowdown of what's going on with Judgment Day. The whole Eternals, X-Men, Avengers thing going on, and the Celestial is pretty much judging Earth. So Reed decides to lock himself in a think tank to think of ideas of how to handle this situation. So that's what puts him out of commission for what's going on here, which definitely makes sense and is a nice kind of way to take him off the field without being like, hey, the plot demands you can't have Mr. Fantastic, so whoop! No, this makes sense, and this is definitely a Reed kind of move here. And throughout it, we see him pretty much having his thought bubbles of, throughout the issue, of him trying to come up with ways of how to deal with the Celestial. Of course, because it's a Celestial, it has all these kind of other abilities, so you can't really run from it. How do you kind of deal with it? You can't brute force it. It's interesting seeing him go through the thought process and everything. And then Sue, of course, telling him that everything's pretty much alright, and that they love each other, as she then gets in and pretty much starts handling stuff in the Baxter Building. And she talks with this woman, Harriet, how she's quitting smoking and everything, and that she's wondering if it means anything because of the Celestial pretty much getting ready to take him out. And she's like, no, we can't give up hope, and we'll just keep doing everything, and then just swing by the labs, and we'll like tailor a gum to help you quit smoking more effectively. It's like, there you go. So Sue then pretty much bumps into this person who calls herself Zoe, and she's saying that she's the accounting temp, and it's kind of more than it appears. Sue's saying that you picked the perfect day to kind of start. It's like, I kind of understand that. Alright, here. And then we see that, like, Ben's helping to battening down the hatches with the Herbies, and Johnny's pretty much doing his usual Human Torch stuff, pretty much going to get pizza, using a flying Corvette. And Reed's, like, talking about how, like, Johnny's reminding us to live in a blaze of glory, and also wondering if, like, the Celestials, they could have just, if they're not here to test our strength, maybe they're here to learn who we really are, which kind of makes sense. Let's see. So Johnny pretty much is explaining to Ben that, yeah, I'm just here to lift people's spirits and stuff. I'm going on a pizza run. You run anything? And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm trying to watch my waistline, but don't tell Alicia. And he's like, alright, cool. And then we start seeing that the whole kind of thing starts getting into effect. We see this kind of like small thing kind of go to the kind of like secretary's thing, jacking in the system. We see people bringing in things, which, again, I do like this effective use of the 9-panel layout here, because you get nice movement. I mean, I don't need it in every kind of issue, but it's cool when you see it kind of done very well, as you see it just telling the story pretty awesomely. Because you see it jack into the thing, you see it kind of like messing with the system, and then kind of like bringing everything in. Let's see here. Yeah. And then we see that, like, Sue's talking with the accounting temp. Well, temp? Flip back. Yeah. Why she wanted to be in accounting, talking about her father's business and everything. Sue being like, I don't see myself as a superhero or anything. She's got like a lot of other hats and everything. And that they consider everybody family here. Talking to Eduardo, who's one of the custodians, has been with them since his oldest was born. And it's really kind of cool to be like, hey, they actually do talk and know people that work within the Baxter Building. It's not just the Fantastic Four. It's a thing that's got all these other people involved as well. Let's see. Yeah, and then we see that Reed's talking about, like, he's afraid that, like, there are other people coming up with chilling ideas and just executing horrendous plans while this is all going around. And it's like, yeah, there will be people that'll be selfish and do stupid things. Like, hey, this thing's going to pretty much, like, judge us, so if it fucks us over, I'm going to get what I can. And then we see that, they're talking about that, like, there's hope and everything like that. And Eduardo's like, hey, even sometimes the impossible has limits. As Zoe gets off, and she's talking about, you really are everything your father said you are. Always turn everything to my advantage. And then we see everything starting to go nutty as she starts changing into her outfit. These Herbies start going nuts. Torch can't get back towards the building. Ben starts getting attacked by these weird kind of things. And we learn that Zoe is Abilette. And I'm like, I don't know much about this character, so that's a pretty effective introduction. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how this is going. Now the thing is, they kind of like blew up a lot of stuff, and Sue's like hanging out, but Eduardo pretty much saved her at that point. And then she like goes pretty much in a really kind of cool way, using her powers to tackle the kind of rogue Herbies, but then Eduardo gets thrown out, and she dives after him to save him. While, of course, Reed is talking how most people underestimate Sue, because she's like the Invisible Woman, and don't really understand her power set and who she is as a person, because her power sets is one of the things that makes her powerful, but also who she is. And I really like this shot as you get these three panels kind of showcasing it while you get this awesome kind of bubble here as she pretty much grabbed him, utilized her power to kind of dampen their fall, and then used the shield to protect them from the elevator popping down on their asses. And then it's great because she just sits down and like tries to calm him down from that, as of course the people are like, hey, send in your Abilette sends her regards, as we see Ben pretty much tackling the guys and taking them, but he utilizes the laser and it's like gonna explode pretty much. It's like, that's not good. Johnny, of course, tries to flame back into the building, but then gets bounced back into another building, and like, ah, God! And he's like, score one for the force field. It's like, yep. But of course, he's like, Reed is also pondering if, like, what happens if the Celestials find his family wanting? And that's an important question. It's like, are they here to judge us on the convictions of our beliefs and all that? It's like, yes, these are important questions to ask Reed. And, of course, he kind of ends it with, like, hey, I believe in Sue. And they're like, keep your hands where I can see them. And she's like, well, I guess there's only one thing left to say. Yippee-ki-yay, gentlemen, as she turns invisible and starts kind of racking their asses. It's like, yep. And it's really kind of cool, because we see a little bit of stuff here as she's using typical kind of, like, just hand-to-hand combat. But then she starts, like, creating, like, force fields around them to, like, make them pass out. It's like, yes! That's an important bit. Effective use of powers and showcasing of those powers. And, of course, one of the dudes starts trying to use his goggles to find Sue. Does. And it's like, yeah, I got irradiated bullets that can punch right through your force fields. It's like, I don't need a force field to block your ammunition. Not when I can jam your magazine ejector instead. I'm like, yeah, there you go, Sue. And then we see that Avalot's pretty much like, oh, I underestimated you. And then she pretty much starts talking about, like, yeah, nobody's going to help you. Your husband's in the vault. Your brother's outside. Your mascot's pretty much got more pressing concerns. While Reed's pretty much like, yeah, the logic of the Celestials hits me with clarity. If they wanted to destroy us, they could have already. They ultimately want us to win. And can we figure out the rules of the game fast enough to prevail? It's like, yeah, I get that. And Sue's trying to figure out what Avalot's kind of going for, but she's like, I had my first pocket dimension when I was 16. And she has that as a backup. She hears the Faultine is nice this time of year. Nice little check there. I'm like, alright. And she's here for her birthright, the ultimate cosmic weapon her father died striving to attain, which is knowledge. So she's going to take all of the knowledge from Reed Richards and take the Midas Foundation intergalactic as we get a last shot of the Celestial pretty much in the in-between phase of judging and everything. It's like, okay, that's pretty big. It's like, what would she be going for? There's a lot of different stuff that you could be going for, especially when you're trying to do stuff, potentially trying to figure out how to survive a Celestial kind of thing. And the thing is, that's not her important objective here. She wants the knowledge that Reed Richards has. It's like, okay, interesting there. We'll have to see how she kind of plans on doing that since he's locked in the vault, and she's talking about, like, taking all of his, let's see here. I'm going to break into your husband's vault and steal every last neuron he has. So it'll be interesting to see how she'd be trying to obtain that. And this did a really effective job of setting up Sue as a really good kind of John McClane kind of way for her to utilize her powers in kind of cool and effective ways that normally you really haven't seen before, potentially. I mean, granted, I haven't read much on Sue doing solo stuff, so there are potentially other comics that have kind of dealt with this before, but I kind of like seeing her in this different kind of role. She's kind of on the back foot, so we have to see how she thinks and gets her way through situations kind of like this, because Johnny is more the kind of hot-headed one. Ben's, of course, the kind of bruiser that still cares about people and everything, so he is more the kind of brute force. And Reed's typically more the analytical and the kind of stopping approach. Sue, I'm really interested to see how this kind of works out. And I also am interested to learn more about Avalette and how she's trying to do everything and learn more about her character. So I think they did a really good job on this, because whenever you're trying to do like an in-between kind of phase of, okay, we got this creative team that's going to handle this for a tie-in to get us into the new kind of creative team, it's always a tall order to ask. But I think that this was a really good hit with this, in my opinion, because I enjoyed it. It still felt consistently Fantastic Four, and the tie-in just worked with what was going on with the Judgment Day and everything, where I'm like, oh, okay. It didn't feel like the events overshadowed what was going on. It naturally wove into the premise of Die Hard in the Baxter Building. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes next. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.